Why did he?
Let's go. All right, welcome back, everyone. We got Nick and Austin here, like usual. And we also have Jared Jordahl, Mr. Jared Jordahl, this time. Because this week we're going to be ranking Christopher Nolan movies. I think this is probably the pretty natural progression to go from after doing Kubrick 2 weeks ago, as far as ranking a director's filmography. Because Christopher Nolan is basically the new Kubrick, right? He's the great auteur of our generation of filmmakers. And he's very much like Kubrick in a lot of ways, especially in the sense that a lot of his movies have a very strong individual identity. And he doesn't really repeat himself too much that often, just like Kubrick. And just the attention to detail and the meticulous craft making in every single one of his movies feels like a very unique experience each time you watch a different one of his movies. Um, Yeah, and without much further ado, let's get into it because there's definitely a lot to talk about with Nolan. So we'll do just like we did last time. We'll rank the entire filmography down from the worst to the best. And we'll start off with Nick because Nick is in our top left here.
Okay. All right. So at number 12, I put The Dark Knight Rises. Honestly, I thought it was the weakest of the three Batmans. And I just want to say he did make three Batmans. So that is like repeating himself, technically.
Well,
No, I'm just
sure,
fucking with
but
you. I'm just fucking with you. But I put that at the bottom. I just thought it was the weakest of the three. I mean, it was like great movie for the masses. Like it was just fun to watch. Like it was a fun watch, but I don't think it was anything special out of the three. Certainly not as good as The Dark Knight or Batman Begins. So I got it at 12, but there's more to go around, so I'll say that much.
yeah, I agree 100%. Dark Knight Rises at 12 for me. This movie sucks. Almost nothing in it
Damn.
makes sense.
Yeah.
It's the only Nolan movie I'll say that I think is bad, and that's great. He has 12 movies, and this is the only one that I think is actually bad. All the others are great to awesome. This one sucks. Um, yeah, like literally, a lot of the story just doesn't make sense. Most of the movie, a lot of it is just him hiding in a hole, some other side of the world. The character development is god awful. You can't understand Bane most of the entire movie. His motivations are very surface value. Um, a far cry from Heath Ledger's Joker and just the movie prior, where he was such a layered, interesting character. Bane has none of that. Talia has one of the worst death scenes I've ever seen in a movie. Robin is way underdeveloped as a character who's supposed to take on the mantle of Bruce Wayne and Batman. It's just a lot of this movie just feels underdeveloped, and I get it. I mean, Nolan is coming off of the pressure of making another movie after his two largest successes that he had at that point in time, Inception and The Dark Knight. And so the pressure is definitely there for him to make another huge spectacle, but he spent way too much time storyboarding all these action set pieces, like the beginning of the movie with the plane hijacking, and then the blowing up of the stadium, and the end of the movie. Just way too much time focused in those sequences rather than the story and the characters. So for that reason, that's why I have it at number 12.
I had it at 11 because there's one movie I think is worse. But it's definitely not good. I agree. Out of all
I
three of
bet
the
you're gonna say the following.
no,
Oh, okay. All
no,
right. That's based. All right.
no. I have it at 11, but it's the same things. When I think of The Dark Knight Rises, I think of Spider-Man 3, where it's just a very busy film. There's a little too much that he's trying to tell. I mean, there's Catwoman, there's Robin, there's Bane, there's Talia, there's all this different stuff happening, and nothing really gets deep enough, just like in Spider-Man 3, where there's just so much happening and you can't really finish any of the stories as well as you might have wanted to. Um, yeah, it's just not good. And for once, I'll agree with you guys. Like putting it last is probably really valid. The only reason it's not last is because it's just Batman. Like I still had fun watching it. Like he's still out there like kicking ass and doing his thing. So I didn't think it was. necessarily awful, but it's not good. So
What's your 12?
my 12 is Dunkirk.
What?
Dunkirk, that's a good one if you want to go to bed.
Damn.
That movie is a snooze fest. So I hated it. Couldn't stand 1 second of it. I watched that. I remember watching it in theaters and I just was like, I almost didn't even know what was happening because I was just so out of it. I was like, this just is kind of taking a while.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
to put it below Dark Knight Rises is a
It's
little.
crazy.
Dark Knight Rises, I was watching the whole time. I can't even honestly tell you the premise of Dunkirk because I was so just like, what are we doing here?
It's in the name.
Yeah, I don't know what Dunkirk is.
Well, I'll get to my thoughts on Dunkirk, I guess, like much later on.
Yeah.
But
Look around. Sorry.
That's why I'm making a
Look
one-time
around.
appearance.
I cannot believe you.
No,
I
this
really don't honestly have much to say about Dunkirk just because it pretty much is a documentary, but we'll get there.
Okay.
Austin.
All right. Well, my also The Dark Knight Rises. I won't go as far as to say it's a bad film, but I don't think it's a good Christopher Nolan film. I mean, like I think the action scenes are kind of cool, but it's for a Batman movie. It's not the right kind of action scenes that I would have liked to have seen. I would have liked to see like Batman action scenes, and there's like multiple scenes where it's tons of extras like flooding like through the streets fighting each other, and it doesn't scream Batman to me, right? I want to see Batman like jumping around and like beating people on the back of the head and non-lethally taking them out, right?
Yeah, he doesn't kill people, remember.
Um, or I mean, there was like the some of the scenes are kind of corny. Like every scene that Bane speaks is really corny. Or the like this, I was born in the darkness.
Yeah.
Like the scene with like Catwoman just shooting Bane and killing him at the end of the movie. Like Bane is kicking Batman's ass once again, and then he just gets like
Shotgun.
like he's like
shotgun
he just gets shotgunned, and that's like it. Like you won't even like think about Bane again for the rest of the movie. Um, you know, I don't like it as a Batman movie. I do think that the action pieces are cool and really big, so it's definitely like a good like yeah. I didn't take it back. I said it wasn't a good Nolan movie. It's as a Nolan movie. I think like the action part of it is really good. I just don't like it as a Batman action movie as much.
So I think I missed it. Is that your number 12 too? Or
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
I think it also like it missed out on like they led up to Batman towards the beginning, tells Catwoman, no, don't shoot anyone, don't kill people. And then she kills Bane and he's just like all he's like fine with it. He's like, all right, whatever, just because
Like, let's get married and ride off into the sunset.
There's
right.
I'm telling you, man, like there's literally zero characterization for any of the characters throughout the entire movie. There's no arc whatsoever other than Bruce Wayne giving a wink and nod to Michael Caine at the end. Like it's so
So
stupid.
yeah, I mean, I agree with your point that he seemed to be more focused on creating giant action set pieces than he was creating an engaging story.
Cool. On to our number 11s.
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest, like I didn't watch Batman Begins. I'm just put it out there. I just didn't watch it. I hate, dude. I don't like fucking superhero movies. So I put it at 11 because I know it has to be better than The Dark Knight Rises. Um, but yeah, I'm just gonna like you could just skip over me for this one because I shred. I don't know. I don't know have opinion of it because I haven't seen it. But I know it's better than The Dark Knight Rises. So there you go.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a perfect transition because yeah, it's my number 11.
Me and you, Kurt.
I mean, I like this movie a lot. Like I said, The Dark Knight Rises is the only one I think is a bad movie. I like Batman Begins, but you take Christopher Nolan's name off this movie and you wouldn't fool anyone. There's no Christopher Nolan mark anywhere to be found on this movie, really, other than just really good, gritty storytelling. Um, it's very similar to Insomnia in that respect. It's very much a studio movie. But I have a lot of respect for the movie. It was basically the first studio movie to break the DC mold that to make a good DC superhero movie. And still pretty much like these Nolan Batman movies are like the cream of the crop when it comes to a DC superhero film. So you got to give a lot of respect to Nolan for that. And it stands pretty good by itself on its own 2 feet. It's also the first collab that he has with Cillian Murphy and Michael Caine. And I do like the approach it takes into diving pretty deeply into Bruce Wayne's roots. But again, going back to a Christopher Nolan ranking, it artistically doesn't really have anything to wow me. Doesn't have anything super interesting, super cerebral that Christopher Nolan is known for. And so I just got to kind of keep it at the bottom here, even though I do like it.
So are we just all saying our like 12, 11, 10, 9, 8?
Yeah, just going around and down.
Well, my 11 was Dark Knight Rises because and you guys can yell at me when you guys get to your Dunkirk at like 3 or something stupid like that. But
yeah.
But no, I guess because I already talked about what my 11 is, I have Batman Begins kind of low, so I kind of get what you're saying. But yeah, I had Dark Knight Rises at 11, and I already kind of explained that. So
okay.
All right. I had Batman Begins at number 11, and I like Batman Begins. But yeah, I mean, it just doesn't it's not it's a lot earlier in his career, and this is like the first big action set piece movie that he's done, I think. Right?
Yeah.
So he didn't have all the skills that he had in some of the later movies. I still think it's a good movie, and I do really like it for one reason. It's because the movie came out in 2005. And I know that we live in current year and there's tons of superhero movies all the time. But this is a really good and dramatic superhero movie that came out so early compared to everything else. Because, I mean, Iron Man, which is what kicked off like the MCU, was 3 years later. It's the same year as The Dark Knight, actually, in 2008. So it does show that, I mean, he had the ability to make this, and I mean, I honestly like it better than some of the earliest MCU movies too. So I mean, he had the ability, and there was a market for it this early on, but it just wasn't tapped into. Nolan kind of got into it. I wouldn't say I like it more than the first, a little bit earlier, but you got. I mean, it's good, and it came out early, and it shows that he did have the skills to make a good movie even that early on in his career. I mean, that's all I really have to say about it. It's just the first Batman movie.
Well, like, and honestly, I like the characters a lot in Batman Begins. And I think it's like the opposite of the issues I have with The Dark Knight Rises. His characterization in Batman Begins, I think, is honestly the strongest of the trilogy. Because you get all of Bruce Wayne's backstory, and then you get the introduction of Cillian Murphy as like this really unhinged version of Scarecrow, kind of like a proto Joker type character in this movie. And I think the relationship with him and Rachel before she was recast as Maggie Gyllenhaal in the next movie, it's better here with Katie Holmes. It's a lot more like you feel like they actually were like childhood friends slash kind of estranged lovers in their young adulthood. Yeah, Falcone, who's I think a really good like stereotype but fun like kind of comic book version of these mobsters. But yeah, all the characters are great in Batman Begins. Honestly, I think they're better than they are in The Dark Knight. -1, obviously, and we'll get to that when we get to that. But the characters are really strong in this movie.
Oh.
All right, Nick, you're number 10.
Okay, so for my number 10, I put Following. I really, really like this movie a lot. Um, but the reason I have it at 10 is just I think it's like I mean, it was a $6,000 budget movie, and not to say that I don't like small budget movies, but he created such a really, really good small budget movie, and it was kind of the first time that you get to see like the more cerebral side of things. Just having to think through the plot a little bit deeper. I don't like black films too much, so I was just like, this is kind of weird, but it kind of, but it was good. It hooked me in the first like 20 minutes, and then it kept me going for a while. But I really like the characters in the movie. I think the only thing I didn't like was the payoff at the end was a little bit kind of underdone. Like it didn't feel as good. He was setting up like way more edgy characters, and then it was just like, oh, okay, like that makes sense. You got duped. So, but yeah, I got it at number 10, just because I think the rest of the films are better than this, but it was like his foundation for like where you can start seeing a little bit more Nolan-esque type plots and stuff like that. But yeah, that's my number 10.
That's what I put at 10. And the reason I have it at 10, because when I first saw what this was and like the first minute, me just, I'm trying to like, get more into those types of movies and different like films that are a little, they're not just the big blockbuster type. I thought I was going to hate it and this was going to be really boring. And I saw black and white. I knew the budget was low. I saw the story. I was like, seems like, a Nolan plot that's just really well thought out. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like it. And I was impressed. I just like he actually turned me and made me think like, wow, this is like a pretty well thought out film, especially for the budget and what he had to work with and how I was reading stuff about it. Like the acting on it, I think is really well done because he had so much film to use and they had to make sure they had this like really well done before they actually shot each scene. So I really appreciated how well done it was for the amount of money put into it and the fact that it hooked me. I think it's definitely a much more well done film than like The Dark Knight Rises. So I thought 10 was a good spot for it just because the caliber of stuff above it.
Yeah. Okay.
You thought Dunkirk was boring, but this one wasn't.
Dunkirk, at least this one I was like watching, So.
Following is more interesting than Dunkirk. I will say that. It's not better, but
History Channel. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, is that all you got for Following, Jared? Okay. My number 10, and it may be surprising because I really love this film, but I got to throw Tenet at 10.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, really love this movie. It's probably top 3 favorite Nolan for me, but I can't excuse just how convoluted and messy it is as a movie. I think it's a great concept, but also I think it's almost pretty impossible to make this movie from the concept. I mean, obviously, Nolan is the best person to do it, but still, the resulting product is the movie that we have. And obviously, no one's going to be able to do it better. It kind of just proves that this is more or less an unfilmable concept. But it's still fun to watch just because of how crazy it is. Uh, it kind of has the opposite issue that Inception has, whereas Inception, a lot of the movie is exposition dumping. Like literally, the characters are walking and talking the plot of the movie and explaining it. Tenet is the opposite. None of the characters drop any exposition. There is no explanation pretty much for like anything that happens for the most part. There's a couple scenes, but you're kind of just expected to like figure it out amongst the like mind fuck of the inverted storylines playing out at the same time against each other. Um, it's ambitious, but it's not arrogant like some of the other movies that he has out there. Like Dark Knight Rises, I think, is a very arrogant movie and how he shoots some of the action set pieces. And I think Interstellar is also a very arrogant movie. Um, Tenet is it's ambitious without that. So in other words, I just find it a really fun movie, but it is definitely very messy and hard to get behind.
Austin.
And it was also my number 10.
Nice.
Yeah, no, I mean, I really like the movie. I like the the characters going back in time. I think it's a unique take on them traveling backwards in time too, is they're literally experiencing the flow of time in reverse. I don't think I've really seen that before in a movie. The set pieces he had are amazing, like them like robbing the truck and stuff, or him in the highway chase where he's driving, but he's driving in reverse. And all that's super cool, but the writing's like the writing kind of sucks. Like
It's just so impossible. Like,
the planning
No,
he did for the story.
One scene where it's like they explain everything, or they try to, where they're trying to tell him like how it all works, and
Yeah.
beyond that, they're like, "Yo, good luck." Like,
My favorite part is my favorite is like when they want to explain something, the characters go, actually, can't tell you. Gotta keep that secret. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
Like, I'm trying to, like, I don't understand anything. And the characters literally are like, can't tell you. It's
yeah,
like,
Robert Pattinson edges through the entire movie.
it's edging.
I thought the twist at the end where it turned out that he was actually the head of the Shadow Organization, I thought that was stupid.
oh, I mean, I liked it.
I actually kind of like that. Yeah.
Dude,
It's kind of fun.
yeah, exactly. Like this movie is fun.
Yeah, the movie was fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not saying that I don't think it's a fun movie to watch or it's not like great action or everything. I just think that the writing sucks. Like, there's
yeah. Well,
Yeah, I left that
There's
movie
one
the first
point-
time. Like, I don't know what happened, but I know this was good. But I don't know what I just saw. But
yeah.
The other thing, the sound mixing of this movie sucks. I remember watching it in the theaters, and I'm like, I don't understand what the hell they're saying. Like,
Well,
Yeah.
well,
and
nothing else
that
influenced that viewing. Nothing.
no, nothing at all. I think that, oh yeah, the main character is called the protagonist. And like, just give him a name.
That was probably the cringiest thing to do. Like him literally calling himself the protagonist. Oh my gosh, I felt like I got transported to brain rot. I was like, this is so cringe, dude. How did Nolan know? How did Nolan know this was cringe? And dude, it was just wild. I am the protagonist. Like, oh my god, dude.
And then at the very end, when he's in the car and he shoots the Indian woman, he's like, I figured out that I am the protagonist. And I'm like,
one of them.
There's one of the scenes where they just like completely drop a plot line. Like, so in one of the earliest scenes, when he's talking to the scientist lady, it's like one of the first people he talks to when he gets like exposition.
Oh yeah, like
Yeah, that's like the only time they ever coherently explain the plot, and then they just give up.
yeah.
They're like, there's a war brewing between the future and the present. That's not what happens in the movie at all. Like,
Yeah.
but I mean, besides me not liking the way the story is written, or I think the main character is cringy and all that stuff, I do like the movie a lot. So I think the action is great. I think it's a really cool premise. So if you just want to watch something that's really fun to watch, I would definitely watch it.
I had Tenet, so probably just move on to the next person.
Okay, my number 9 is Insomnia. And kind of like the same reasons I had with Batman Begins. If you take Nolan's name off the movie, you wouldn't know any better because there's no Nolan trademark anywhere on this movie at all. It's pretty much just a normal studio movie. In fact, it was for hire. So he had no influence in the production of this movie whatsoever. The writing, the actual production credit. Like he's literally just a director on this movie, which is rare for a Nolan movie because he's usually heavily involved in the writing and production of films. But it is very well directed. And it has very strong performances from Pacino and Williams, some of the best of both of their respective careers. Um, it's a great story. It's unfortunate it's not Christopher Nolan's own story, but it is definitely a strong enough story to hold up on its own. But I really don't have much else for this movie. Yeah, I mean, it's underrated for a reason, but it is still very good, and I like watching the movie. I'm always surprised by how much I like this movie every time I rewatch it because I end up forgetting about it, and I feel like that's probably most people's experience with the film. So that's pretty much all I have for it.
Hmm.
Oh, Jared's got that smirk. He's about to say something.
He's about to say something tasty.
I think that's not criminally low. That would be the wrong thing to say with what's on the upper half of like a Nolan ranked list. But I don't think it's the ninth best. I just think well, I guess I can talk about it when I get to it, right?
If you want, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess the only thing I would say is like it's not like what you expect a Christopher Nolan film to be, but just like how not really fun, but just that how uncomfortable that movie makes you feel and like the emotions that you get watching it. Like I'll talk about it, but like when I watched that movie, I felt like I did something wrong. I don't know, like the way that Al Pacino and Robin Williams like interact, like I think that alone puts it in like the top of like the second half of like a Nolan film ranking. But I can talk about it when I get to it. My number 9 was Batman Begins. And the only reason I have it above, like, well, obviously it's above Dark Knight Rises. But it's just I think of like those types of movies. When I watched Batman Begins, I originally hated it because I thought it was really boring because I watched it when I was like 7. But as I watch it more, I just appreciate it more. Like you just kind of appreciate the acting, the stories, the story. Huh? Should someone talk?
No one say anything. It's your voices in your head.
No, but it's just one of those movies where as I've watched it, I've enjoyed it more, and I've come to appreciate like Cillian Murphy for like a part, honestly, that shouldn't be good. With just like
it's great.
Be good. He does a very great job with it, and like Liam Neeson as Ra's al Ghul, when I like killer, like great casting, great acting, and I think it's a very well done origin story of Batman. Not as good as Pattinson, but it's good. So it's 9.
Jared, would you like to see my mask?
No, I would hate you as Scarecrow. Would be like the scariest thing in the world.
To a normal person like you or me, just a mask, but to these crazies,
dude, Cillian Murphy,
he's so good.
But he does a great job with it. Like so.
You may know this. Did you know that he was supposed to be cast as Batman?
Yeah.
Yeah, those screen tests, I like watching those.
Oh, I've seen that he was supposed to be Batman, but I've never seen the
screen tests are on YouTube. You can find them.
Okay, I'll definitely watch those.
It's really cool.
Yeah. But yeah, that's my 9. You're wrong about Insomnia being that low, but
it's fine. I like it a lot.
Because you like were the one because I hadn't seen Following in Insomnia. And I watched Insomnia, and I think I was texting you, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
The editing in that movie is crazy.
Yeah,
and that's what makes you feel on edge the whole
movie.
Yeah.
Okay. My number 9. It's Following. I like Following. I just think that I don't know. I don't like the main character. I think he's a little flat. I wish there was a little bit more to his character other than I want to be voyeuristic and watch people break into houses. But I do like the twist at the end. I like the setup. I like all the hints that he put throughout the movie for the twist at the end. There's even like the one scene I thought it was just to be funny where Cobb hands him the soda and he shakes it up and then gives it to him. I thought it was just funny, but no, it actually shows that like from the start, Cobb didn't like this guy and was just using him, but he didn't realize it until the end. So I mean, I think it's a good movie. I just don't have a lot to say about it. I'd like all the other movies a lot better.
Number 8, I have Insomnia. I really, really do like this movie a lot. I actually really do. It was like I feel kind of bad though because I was like, wow, I don't want to hate a Robin Williams character, like the character, not the actor. But I was like, man, what a scumbag. I was like, dang, dude. I mean, he did a good job. I was like, this is gross,
Yeah.
um, but I was like, wow, I can't believe I hate a Robin Williams character. And it also had one of the scariest fog scenes in a movie I've ever seen, where I was like, whoa, dude, like,
Good.
and I knew the moment he shot, I was like, oh my God, he shot his partner. Like we all knew. And it was like, you gotta be kidding me. And the way, oh gosh, I thought the acting in this movie was so good too. Cause like the way his actor, I literally felt it. I felt that guy when he was like, get away from me. I was like, whoa. Um, but I think, yeah, I kind of like though the what do you call those? Like police thrillers? Cause it reminds me of like yeah, Fargo or something like that. What is it? Like a murder
Yeah.
investigation movie? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you, Kurt, where it's like it didn't really feel like a Nolan movie at all. It just sort of felt like a movie that was really, really well written and really well acted, but it didn't have like those. It wasn't as cerebral as like a Nolan movie normally is. But yeah, I mean, that's what I think of Insomnia. It's a really good movie, but I think there's better movies left.
All right. My number 8 is Interstellar.
Ooh, ooh,
Yeah.
ooh, ooh. I mean,
Um,
like I get it, but like, ooh, it's a little ow.
yeah,
Ooh.
the normies are really gonna hate this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, my 8 is Interstellar, and it's just because I feel like this is like the worst version of Nolan as a director, where he feels very arrogant here in just his direction. Um, I feel like he's trying to do way too much with this story, and it just comes across as muddled, especially in the end. I mean, I literally wrote in my notes here, tries to talk to daughter through gravity. What? Like,
Push the
I
books, man. Push the books.
like
But he's a fifth dimensional being, Kurt.
Yeah, Kurt.
the science
What the fuck
behind
is
the
all that tech
movie,
for?
like I remember articles at the time when this movie came out, they're like, it's one of the most scientifically accurate movies to ever come out. And then you get shit like this by the end of the movie where it kind of just throws all that out the window. Like, yeah, the beginning of the movie and like their dissection of black holes and the event horizon around the black hole, like all of that, and then the time dilation, like yes, all of that is based on scientific theory. But then the moment he goes through the black hole, it just literally throws it all out the window and then tries to intertwine it with the plot of the movie and then make some really emotional statement at the end. I think it's just way too much. It's way too ambitious, but not in the fun way that Tenet is, in a very arrogant way. And it rubs me the wrong way every time I watch it, and I just really don't like it. Um, I feel like I'm supposed to walk away with a meaning from this movie, but I don't have one. Um, Now, all of that being said, obviously, it's an incredibly made movie. It's very well crafted. I mean, the visual storytelling that he does in some of these scenes are breathtaking, and the cinematography is gorgeous. And especially Hans Zimmer's score in a lot of the scenes are very intense, but it tries to do too much, and I don't think it does it successfully as a film. I know a lot of people love this movie, and I think they probably get a little too wrapped around the axle with just how spectacular it is in some parts. And I think a lot of people forgive some of the really bad storytelling aspects, especially closer to the end of the movie. I think that's probably pretty much all I got for it. I mean, I don't really like this movie, but I do respect it. And I get why a lot of people really do love this movie. But I think Nick and I were talking about this once, comparing it to 2001, which is what a lot of people like to do.
Yeah.
Apples to oranges and very disrespectful. Like, it is not like 2001. It's nothing like 2001. Do not fucking call it 2001. It isn't. It tries to be some like emotional storytelling through like scientific method, whereas 2001 is straight up a story about humanity, period, dot, and it's awesome.
I mean, that's what Interstellar and 2001 have the same theme. It's what will humans do like for humanity? Like what is the the amount that you're willing to push forward for like the drive for the human spirit, right? So it just tells it in a different way.
Sure. No, I mean, yeah, that is a fair point. I'll take that. But yeah, I guess the approach is very different. That's what I have for Interstellar, though. I don't think I have anything else right now.
Are you sure you didn't mean to put it lower on the list? Like Jesus.
No, no, I really didn't.
That was your
It-
number 8?
yeah, I mean, just the story. The story's bad, man. All the other stories that I have higher are better stories.
Yogi, do you have it higher? Jared,
You'll
do you got
see.
it higher?
Interstellar?
No
Yeah.
telling.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to know. Anyway. No, I'm sorry. I just want to know.
All right, I think it's Jared.
Yeah.
With my 8,
Number 8. Yeah.
11, 10, 9, 8. 8 was Tenet. When I was talking about my list with Kurt, when he was first telling me I'd get to hop in and do the Nolan stuff, I told him that Tenet was going to be last. And that was solely because I just didn't know what happened. I just didn't understand it. But I watched it again and it made a lot of sense as much as it could for what was talked about earlier. Still a lot of it you're just like I don't really know what's happening, but I think it's another one though where Nolan, he likes to do those like foreshadowings at the start of the movie. He loves those, and then like it doesn't always. You might have an idea midway through the movie of what the start was, but even his foreshadowings are very hard to predict until the end when he kind of, if he chooses to even reveal it. So I grew to appreciate it when I watched it the second time. I thought the storytelling was good, but the thing I didn't like about it was, again, when you think you're gonna know it, like I was gonna say, like Pattinson freaking edges you the entire movie, where like you think you're gonna finally get to know all about it, and then he's like, "Can't say, sorry." You're like, "Fuck." So I think 8's a good spot for it. It's definitely not in his top half of movies, and yeah, it moved up, not far, but it moved up.
It makes more sense when you watch it again, but it never makes total sense because it never
And
will.
if you try
It
to like,
never will.
or even if you try to read the stuff that people have posted about it, and then you try to watch the movie and apply it, you still don't fully get it.
Yeah, that's the conclusion I came to. It's just
If anyone
impossible.
can take this inversion concept and try to make it into a movie, it's Nolan, and no one's gonna be able to do that better.
That's what I'm saying.
Like you have to appreciate like what he was trying, and he gave it probably the best try that anyone could. So
That's what I'm saying. I agree wholeheartedly.
No, I mean, I think that the story of Tenet makes sense. It asks way more than what is reasonable of a viewer to be able to piece it together. Is my problem with it because I did an unreasonable amount. I spent an unreasonable amount of time trying to figure out what the fuck this movie was, and I figured it out because I was like, okay, this plot point to this plot point. It did the spider web with the string and stuff, but the average viewer isn't going to do that. So of course it's not going to make sense. And
yeah.
I like the plot. I think it's cool. I dislike how hard he made it for a person to sit down and watch it and understand what the hell was happening.
Do you think it could have been him because he loves using time as his as a big part to his plot and stuff moving in different ways? It might I think maybe it was just him trying a new one because he's done like so many where the timelines are like you go sequential, like you'll cut to a scene, like Memento's like huge with that. And this one he's like, instead of me cutting to both, let's just play them at the same time and see how I can do it.
100%. Like that is the meta narrative concept for Tenet. It's just like as far as the story goes.
So I think it's a really neat idea.
Yeah, I think it's an overcorrection of Inception. Because like I said before, Inception, there's a lot of exposition and like it's like Nolan holding the audience's hand, like, here's what I'm trying to show you here, like you'll get it. And then Tenet, it's like, figure it out. So
Yeah, I think that he could have done a lot more in Tenet to make the plot make more sense. And I mean, I guess it's cool to make people do that, like go down the rabbit hole, so to speak, and try to figure out what the plot is. But if you want to make an engaging story, that's not what you should do.
Yeah.
My turn.
yeah.
My number 8 is also Interstellar.
Oh, what?
What?
Yeah, and I love Interstellar, and I put it at number 8 for one reason, and it's one line in the movie. It's Anne Hathaway towards the end talking about the power of love. And I'm like, no, I hate this scene. I hate this scene so fucking much.
Yes. Yeah.
But I do like the movie a lot. I really do like the movie. I don't know. You said so many negative things about the movie, and I have a lot of positive things to say about the movie, but we have it at the same ranking.
Yeah, that's honestly kind of funny. Well, no, because I really don't like this movie, and I have it at number 8. But I know you really do like this movie, and you have it at number 8.
Dang,
So, what are the goods? Let's hear it.
Yeah, I mean, I like the scientific attention to detail that he put into it. I know that things went kind of wonky when he goes into the black hole. It is kind of just Nolan finding an out, essentially, trying to tie everything back together. But in a black hole, like the rules of physics are different. So yeah, maybe that is how it works in a black hole. Like I don't know, but I mean it's. I like the story of exploration. So them going through the wormhole to all the different planets around a new star system, well, black hole system, I guess, trying to find a new home. I really love the soundtrack and some of the cinematography that he has, like the scene where he's trying to line up the capsule to dock it back into the main ship. That is such a cool scene. Where they're spinning and
Yes.
he's trying to pilot it back up so it can get docked. That is such a cool scene to see. Another thing I don't like is Matt Damon's character. I don't understand why he's in the movie. He just kind of shows up and then he's there for 15 minutes as a red herring, and then he's like, oh, I'm a bad guy.
He's there because he was in The Martian the year before, and he was just a cameo.
I guess. I also really love the soundtrack of this movie. Like, I know it is a really good soundtrack. Most people really like it, but I like the soundtrack a lot. I mean, I like the movie a lot. I just like a lot of the other movies a little bit better. I do kind of agree that it is a little arrogant, pretentious, maybe. It feels like he really tried to go like as far out as he could with this movie. And a lot of the things he really hit on. So like the set pieces, the cinematography that he used, the soundtrack were all great, but it feels like he was kind of stretching the story a little bit. Because I mean, like the way the story wrapped up is a little assholed, honestly. But he does. I mean, he still does all the Nolan trademarks. He still has like the callbacks to earlier in the movie where there's something that's unexplained. that just happens, and then it gets called back to like, oh yeah, that's why that happened by the end. Um, and even though I don't like the love monologue that Anne Hathaway gives. I do like the characters in the movie for the most part. I do really feel the bond that these characters have with each other. Like between I forgot what his name is, but Matthew McConaughey and his daughter Murph. And you can, I mean, even though that the monologue is shitty, I can still understand why Anne Hathaway really wants to go to the planet where her boyfriend is at because she does really want to see him, even though it technically is not the logical thing to do. So you can feel that there's some amount of grief where she has to be like, okay, well, I guess I just don't get to go see my boyfriend because we're going to go to this other planet instead. I just I don't like the ending that much, and I think that at the end of the movie he just kind of wraps it up a little bit poorly. That's the only reason that this is as low as it is.
I think that's valid. I thought I'd be like, what are you guys talking about with this ending? But I can totally see why it would be 8 for some people.
Yeah.
There, you got two sides of the same coin.
Moving on to 7.
Yeah.
Hey, we're only on 7. This is good though. Um, Honestly, for number 7, I put Inception. Basically for a lot of the reasons of what you were talking about earlier, Kurt. I did not like Inception because of all the explaining that happened and like
Fair,
it
fair.
felt like there was like so much going on and the pacing didn't allow for a little like more thinking because the movie felt like it was meant to be for thinking, deep reflective thought, with dreams and some dreams, but the pacing was just so fast that it didn't allow a lot of time from what I felt to actually think about what the movie was saying and like what it was doing. Um, and I don't necessarily like movies with a lot of exposition, to be honest with you. So yeah, those are kind of the big, and like also I think I mean DiCaprio was good in it, but it honestly wasn't his best. So just I think for those reasons I just put it 7, because I think the other movies have a little bit more punch to them. I don't know. I just didn't like it. And I'm the average viewer, so I just was, I don't like think too deep about movies sometimes, but when I watched that movie, I was like, okay, cool, man. Like, good, cool. So
All right.
anyway, move on then.
Back to me. Yeah. My seventh is Following. And I think I probably have this the highest ranked of everyone here, right? I like this movie a lot. Like, I think Following is one of the most, if not the most impressive first feature I've ever seen from a director. And yeah, you guys already brought up before how he only made this on 6,000 pounds, which is incredible. Like he made this thing with like no money, and it's just because it's so story driven. Like, and this is the first example, obviously, we get just how good of a storyteller Nolan is, and just how good his writing is. That it is just pure plot, and you're intrigued from the first shot to the last shot. Um, just strength of his characters that he has here. Jeremy Theobald, who is the main character here, the actor who plays the main character, I think does a great job. I really like him as a character. He comes back in a couple other Nolan movies, not too much though. Um, but also, yeah, like I think Jared, you brought this up. This is also Nolan. Even though it's his first feature and he has almost no money, he still experiments just as much as he can to the max extent possible. He uses a forward and reverse narrative in this movie, just like he does in Memento, the next movie, all the way up to the current day that he just did in Oppenheimer again. It shows how confident he is as a director, even though that this is his first feature. He's pretty much fully formed. The only thing he didn't have was a budget, but he still creates something that's so impactful and so effective regardless. I just think I'm so in love with all of that. It's really hard for me to knock anything about this movie. I think it's no less intriguing than any of the big budget movies. I think it's more intriguing than Interstellar. The story's better. It's more interesting to me. Um, there's no padding. It's very lean. It's very stark. The black and white helps with that. And it's almost surreal in moments, especially with the forward and the reverse narrative. You don't exactly know if you're really supposed to believe what you're watching in some moments. Kind of, I don't know, like some moments feel like Eraserhead for me, mixed with the black and white, and it's a really cool movie, and I'd probably have it ranked a little higher than it should be, but I just think the story is better than all of the other movies that have preceded it on my list.
It was what, 70 minutes, right? That's the
Yep.
runtime.
Yep, hour 10, and it's perfect. It's very lean.
He
Yeah,
packs
it's
a lot
super
in for 70 minutes. Yeah. Is it my 7?
Yeah.
All right, so now, all right, because I'm much more casual movie boy than you three. From
No,
7 to 3,
no, I'm just there with you, Jared.
from
I'm
7
done.
to 3, these could be anywhere. And so don't be mad at me because like Austin and Kurt are like, meh, meh, meh. Number 7 is Memento.
Okay.
I don't know if that's bad. But I've only seen it once. I need to watch it again to like, with all Nolan films, you got to watch them multiple times to really grasp what's happening. But what a freaking movie! Like, I freaking loved it. I at first I was like, are we gonna leave the hotel room or is this whole movie?
I literally thought the same thing too, honestly.
Yeah,
First
because like
time.
the first like 20 minutes, that's all that's happening because you're
I'm
not
like, oh my God, we're back to
really
this.
grasping, like that this is him ahead of time and this is him back in time. Like you're just still trying to piece it all together. And I was like, is this whole thing going to be in a hotel room? And am I going to love this because I already kind of love it? But I think I have it at 7. I love it. Um, the other ones I just had more fun watching. But I will say the coolest thing about Memento was the way that it shows, that he takes like that perception is reality type of thing with this, where he creates this world that where like his wife's killer is still alive. This is his driving force. This is what keeps him alive, gets him out of bed, keeps the mystery going because he doesn't without those like memory devices he has no life. And so this is what's given him his meaning. And when he's able to read that stuff and see that, he doesn't want to lose it. And then the movie is him just being like, you know what? I haven't found my killer yet. And he writes his notes down on himself. And it also I love how it shows like the dishonesty of other people. Like, cause that what's his buddy who's the really wacky dude?
Teddy?
Yeah. Yeah. And when he's like, anyone could come and write these notes and ruin this for you. Like, it's such a fragile movie, like in that way, just with how much like things could be messed up for him. So I just thought it was really fun. If I watch it again, I bet it goes up even more from 7. I feel like 7's too low to be honest for it, but for an early Nolan film that I hadn't watched yet, why did no one tell me that Nolan was like throwing like freaking gas out like early on? I was like, Batman Begins, I thought was like the beginning of Nolan. Not true. So,
First year of Laughlin, I was like, you
watch,
need to see
people need to
Memento.
watch early Christopher Nolan movies because they are sick.
I told you to watch Memento so long.
Yeah, well, I was just like, I saw The Prestige and I was like in love. I was like, why do I need to watch it after this? So,
I
but
told
yeah,
you, I was like, Memento, Prestige, those are your movies.
yeah, and Memento, that's a really, really well done movie. He's kind of at full form with the following somehow, and he just always one ups himself. It seems like so. I mean, yeah, that's my 7. Loved it.
Perfectly stated. Yeah.
Austin?
My number 7 is Insomnia. I
Oh,
think everything I have to say about it has already been said. I like it a lot. I know it doesn't have the fingerprinting of Nolan that the rest of his movies really do. in one way or another, but I don't think that makes it a bad experience. I think it's still a really good movie.
Totally.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean that's all I have to say, really.
Okay. For number 6, I had Interstellar. Um, I loved everything about it. I mean, we already kind of talked about how the plot was kind of like a little goofy and some of the dialogue's kind of whack as fuck. Um, but I love the rewatchability of Interstellar. Like, out of all of these movies, Interstellar for me would probably be the one that I'll go to just rewatch, just because I can forgive some of the plot. I can forgive some of those things because um I do like the science. I do like the set pieces. I do like kind of just the fun of the movie. And I recognize that it's kind of the plot's not as good. And there's a lot of like holes in there and the characters a bit whack. But yeah, I mean, I had it number 6, which is middle of the road. So I feel like for me, that was a pretty okay spot to put it uh, at the end of the day with the rest of the movies. But yeah, I mean, we already talked about it a lot. So. I just got a number 6, middle of the road.
Cool. My
Cartoons?
what is that?
Nothing.
Okay. My number 6 is Dunkirk. I I don't have much to say about Dunkirk, honestly, because I mean it's all there on the screen with like zero dialogue anyway. The way I've always described it is it's pretty much a documentary about the events at Dunkirk. It's a great format. Like I like how the three different storylines all intertwine in the end, and it's like a lot of Nolan movies. It's beautifully shot, if not the most beautifully shot. Uh, Especially like the Spitfire landing scene. It's just you can tell he has a lot of craft and attention to detail in this one, even more so than some of the other ones, and that's saying a lot for Christopher Nolan. He put a lot into this movie to make it feel like an authentic experience, like you're there with them. But I think it loses a little bit of it loses a little bit of the like piece of cinema because of that, because it feels more more just like an authentic experience, more like a documentary. It feels less like a movie. And when I go to a movie, I go for something that I've never seen before, right? I go for a cinematic experience. I'm not necessarily going to watch just something that looks like it literally happened in history 75 years ago. I'm going for maybe something a little bit different. Like, and for the war movie example, I'm going for something like Apocalypse Now, where it's not necessarily a accurate retelling of the events, but more of a metaphorical analysis of the themes of what these sort of horrible scenarios implicate in humanity and the world. I'm going for something more like that, something that owes itself more to the art form of cinema a little bit better than just I hate to say it again, but than just a documentary.
Hmm.
So I feel like it's less of a movie in that respect, but it is still a great piece of work from Christopher Nolan.
Jared?
My turn.
Yeah.
Number 6. Number 6 for me was Insomnia. That's where I ended up putting it.
Oh, nice.
It's been talked about a lot as well. The only things I'll say is I never thought I'd see a movie where Robin Williams plays an antagonist.
Yeah.
You think of him in like RV or Hook or there's just you think of like these like great like fun movies with him where he does all these cool stuff, and then to see him in that dark of a role was just insane and how uncomfortable he made me. And then also, like we said, that just the acting and the storytelling was really well done. And having Al Pacino in a Christopher Nolan movie is like almost unfair. Having like Al Pacino already puts his all into every movie he does, including Jack and Jill, great film. Funkachino. Uh, um, having him and then having Christopher Nolan there to direct a movie is almost just like unfair. I just really thought it was a fun movie, made me really uncomfortable. Just I felt like I felt like I murdered someone, and I was trying to hide it as well. And movies don't usually make me feel that way, so I just had fun with it. So it's my 6.
Okay, my number six is my number six is Inception. I I like Inception a lot. I think it's really, really big. I like the theme. I mean, I don't have anything really bad to say about Inception. I just personally like the rest of the movies more. I can't even really think of a bad thing to say about Inception other than it's it's just a lot to watch, really. Um, I'm trying to think about, are there really any themes to Inception? Like I know that they're going through all the dreams and stuff. Because I mean, to me, Inception feels like a giant set piece movie with tons of action, tons of really cool things going on, but nothing deeper behind it.
I'd say like the one storyline through obviously is Leo DiCaprio's character and his wife. And I mean, the theme there is really like how much is he willing to go further into the illusion to accept that reality? Because that's like all throughout. That's pretty much what torments him is he going to push himself deeper into the dream state and put him just so that he can be with his dead wife? Or is he going to choose his kids instead, who are in the reality? But then he starts to lose his sense of reality. He doesn't even know it. Are his kids the ones who are alive, or is it his wife who's the one who's dead? He's starting to question that by the end. So, I mean, I guess that's kind of the theme. It's like how far are you willing to go for the ones you love, which is something he does in Interstellar as well. Then it's also what he does in Memento too. I guess it pretty much is like kind of a Christopher Nolan through line. But you're right, a lot of it is action set piece heavy.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that I don't like it. I really like Inception a lot. It's just there's not a whole lot that's deeper to it that some of the other movies have that I enjoy about them.
Sweet. So for me, like we're in the top five now. So like a lot like these top five are just great movies and I just love all of them. So it's just kind of hard to just pick. But I put The Dark Knight number five because I mean you already know I'm like not the biggest superhero fan. Even Batman, like I'm not like the biggest fan of. I just thought this movie was fun and like awesome and Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker was just like unbelievably good. Because I think the movie before this, like the previous Joker movie, was a little bit more lighthearted of a Joker, right? If I'm not mistaken. And then it turns into this where it's like the darkest, like just grimiest, like it's so good. I just love the performance that he gives in this movie. Um, and yeah, like I don't really know much else to say about it other than just how like it was just a good Batman movie. Like it was probably the only one that I really truly liked. Out of all like Batman or superhero movies, I think The Dark Knight's probably the one that I like the best. What else about the movie? I haven't seen it in a long time, and I'm sure you guys can talk about it a little bit more. But I do like how dark, I like how violent it is. And I feel like it was a little bit of a departure from the other ones at the moment that it came out, especially after Batman Begins. So yeah, I'm sure you can talk about it a little bit more, but I have it at number five.
Talking about how kind of dark and dramatic the movie is, I I think that like The Dark Knight set the tone for a lot of the DC movies that we saw afterwards that all sucked because they were trying to be like The Dark Knight
Hmm.
and they just didn't do them very well, right? because the MCU went the opposite direction. They went funny and like crowd pleasers. So that's why they were all so much more popular. And I think that, I mean, if the DC also went that route, they could have been a lot more successful than they were.
If they would have went darker, like
No,
follow,
more
if
lighthearted, like
yeah,
yeah,
more lighthearted, more funny.
yeah.
But because The Dark Knight was so successful being really broody and moody and atmospheric, then a lot of the other DC movies kind of tried to copy it, where the tone was much more serious than their competitors' movies, which is what ended up resonating.
no, I would say for the Dark Knight, the thing that I think is so cool about it, and what makes Christopher Nolan's like all about, like, how can you take Batman and be like, you could almost say this isn't a superhero movie,
Hmm.
and it just so happens the protagonist is a superhero because I mean it's dramatic, it's a thriller, it has probably the greatest. We have less than a minute. Probably the greatest acting that has ever been put into a movie with Heath Ledger, and the amount that of care and just craziness that he put into it, and to follow Jack Nicholson up with that kind of performance is just insane. Um, and I think the only bad part, honestly, um, is Harvey Dent not recognizing Joker until he takes the mask off. I think that's the only thing you can really get mad about it for. There's a nurse with face paint on. He's just like, thanks. And then, hi. And he's like, oh my God. It's like, you fuck. The dude who played Harvey Dent is probably the only bad part to the movie.
Aaron Eckert, terrible actor.
Sucks. But
Nick, I think you had the perfect transition right before this. Like, yeah, the top five of Nolan movies are like, these are really cream of the crop. Like, obviously, all these movies are fantastic. And I think that's like the good designating point because from now on, like, I love all these movies and they can almost be interchangeable for me. But alas, my number five is The Prestige. Uh,
Jared,
wow.
you put the Prestige number one. I swear. Never mind. Sorry, back to Kurt. I was just laughing at something.
that's funny.
No.
You think that's funny?
Kurt, please start talking.
I think The Prestige is like one of the modern examples of like a cult movie because I don't think a lot of people talk about this movie at all, but those who have seen it know, and they know how great this fucking movie is, and they love it. I love this movie. It's when I first saw it, I was floored by it, and I think when I first saw it, it was probably my favorite Nolan movie. But now it's sat with me for what, like 5 years now, and I still love it a lot. But like a lot of Nolan movies, I've rewatched all of them numerous times, and it's dropped a little for me. But I still just love it. I love it just as much as when I first saw it. It's I feel like a lot of people probably forgot about this movie because it was right in between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. It's kind of weird that Nolan comes out with like this kind of like pretty standard Nolan type movie right in between the Batman movies. And I think that's because obviously he just did Batman Begins before this, and he knew he was going to have to start working on the sequel. And then before Batman Begins, he did another studio movie with Insomnia. And I think he was a little antsy to get a passion project out there in the meantime. He wanted to do something that was his own original idea, which he obviously hadn't done since Memento. And so, alas, we get The Prestige. And what an answer to Nolan being like, this is my kind of passion project movie that I can make with a huge budget. And then this is the film that we get. It's him using the cast he wants with the story he wants with all the money he wants, and it's crazy. The meta narrative for this one is the magic trick. Obviously, it's about the two magicians trying to one up each other, and he presents the movie as a magic trick in itself, to where us, the audience, are deceived all the way until the end of the film when it's finally revealed to us. It's one of the most, and for that for that reason, it's one of the most engaging and immersive films that I've ever seen. And I think that's why a lot of people really love this movie because it's so fun and entertaining and so mysterious. Um, it's a great watch. It's a blast to watch, and it's one of those ones that you will have a lot of fun rewatching over and over again. I guess just for me, like any magic trick, I know the secret now, and so it's kind of less alluring to me, but I still love it a lot.
And David Bowie.
I
One
guess
of
I'm
one of his best
David Bowie
cameos.
super fan than the other two people in this chat since I have it so high. Maybe. So yeah, this one's been talked about a lot. My 5 is Interstellar.
Yeah.
I think everything you guys said for like what makes it a good movie is why I have enjoyed it as a movie. Definitely the problems with the ending, like was talked about. My least favorite part of Interstellar, though, which I will say, is that Matt McConaughey's character has just came back from a black hole, is going to his daughter's deathbed. Generations of family are seeing this legend of a great great grandfather, and I don't think any of them gave a fuck. And that was just always so weird to me that they're all just kind of like, "Hey, what's up, Gramps?" I'm like, this dude just came out of a black hole, and you guys are like, don't even care. To me, that just sat really weird with me. I feel like they would be like, "Oh my gosh," but um, yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. I thought there was a lot of creativity put into it. Um, and I mean, space is dope, so I had to put it in my top 5. So
Awesome.
All right, my number 5 is Dunkirk. And all of you are fucking wrong about Dunkirk, man. Dunkirk is a great movie. I don't know what the hell is wrong with you
I
people.
had it at 6, dude.
Trash.
All right, look, like Dunkirk is a super cinematic movie. Like, I don't, it is. Like, just because it's about a historical topic doesn't make it not cinematic.
Well, it's only cinematic in its presentation. The argument I was making is that like narratively, it's not really cinematic at all. It's just a beat for beat retelling of exactly what happened with no other sort of messaging behind it. Not saying that it should, but there's like no metaphorical use for anything. It's all very literal retelling. There's nothing interesting story wise behind that to me in a movie.
if I'm gonna watch a military
there
movie,
is.
I'm watching Tropic Thunder over Dunkirk.
All right, how many military movies are there that it's not about them fighting? Because I mean, for the most part, the
Apocalypse
characters in
Now.
Dunkirk they fight. They're not fighting. It's about them struggling to survive because the Germans are on their ass the entire movie. It's a the movie like yes, the movie zooms in on it zooms in on different parts of the Normandy, not Normandy, the Dunkirk exodus from France, right? But it's Nolan does something that he doesn't do in a lot of movies. He makes a really small slice of a world and he tells a compelling story about those characters in that small slice. Because a lot of the Nolan movies are really big and there's lots of characters and there's lots of action going, right? But I mean, there is action going on, but but you're really just following the struggles of whatever plot, like whatever subsection of the plot of characters that you're watching at that time, right? So the soldiers who are on the beach, you watch him steal stuff off of a dead soldier because he's trying to get fresh boots because his boots are waterlogged, and then he picks up another random guy who turns out to be a frog, but no one knows that because he never says anything. They get onto a boat, and then it's the boat blows up, and then they're just back where they started. So it's just like over and over again watching them like try to survive, try to get on to the next moment, and then all the hurdles that get thrown onto them as they're trying to get off of mainland Europe. I think he does a really good job of being empathetic to the soldier's plight in that movie. So, not that it's like Paths of Glory necessarily, but that's something that both of the movies did. Is they make you empathetic to what is going on with that character, right? It builds I wouldn't say that there's a ton of character development in the movie. Not really. Um, the only character development I can think of is the blonde kid on the boat, where he's like, okay, I'm willing to be a leader now and like stand up to this fucking crazy like British captain who is actually a pussy and ran away from the beach. But I don't know. I mean, I like the movie a lot, and that's all without talking about how the movie is structured, which is a really unique way to structure a movie, even for a Nolan movie. 'Cause that's, I mean, I know that he like messes around with the chronology of his movies a lot, but that even for his movies, that's different.
Yeah,
I
awesome.
like it.
I mean, I can agree more. I have Dunkirk as number four. I just love the atmosphere that Nolan creates in the movie, and like the fact that we get to see also like the civilian side of things, like how the civilians are also heroes of what happened at Dunkirk. I know it doesn't have like the awesome like Nolan plot stuff, and I don't know, I do love war movies, and like I don't mind the fact that it's a literal one-to-one retelling of like what happened at Dunkirk. But I mean, I've never had a war movie make me like my heart race without actually any action happening. Really like real action happening. And I just love the different angles that Nolan took to actually like to tell the story of what happened in Dunkirk. So, yeah, I mean, Austin, you kind of already like told literally everything I was gonna say good about the movie. So, but I just wanted to add on and say those two things because I felt like that was just such a big part. So yeah, that was my number four.
My number four, and this one was talked about too. Inception. I don't really know if there's anything left to say about Inception. For me, I just had a lot more fun with it. And for me, because the first time watching it, you do need it explained. I thought I enjoyed the hand holding, and with the young world creator, I felt like that was even necessary for her through the movie. So I kind of felt like that was kind of a reason for it being there, was them explaining to her, and then her by the end of the movie being like, let's do this to jump here to be able to make this and come back so that we can keep these people alive and finish out our mission. I don't know. I just thought it was a really fun movie, and the ending especially, like, it's kind of iconic, I feel like, and it's something that's still talked about today, which is pretty cool for like a movie being almost 15 years old. Is that, yeah, 2010? Yeah, so that's my four. Just had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, as far as like recent history, 21st century movie endings, that's one that's been talked about like top five most talked
I
about
don't, I don't
since
even know.
it
Like,
is
there's not
for
too
our
many
generation.
more, if any. So
Yeah, for our generation, that is one of the good cliffhanging endings.
yeah.
My number four is The Dark Knight. Um, and really, for one big conclusion that I kind of came to when I was thinking about this movie is that if you took Heath Ledger out of this movie, it would be a lot lesser of a film. It would be very much on par with Batman Begins, if not a little worse, because there's weaker characters than there are in Batman Begins without Heath Ledger in this movie. And there's a lot of plot holes in this movie that a lot of people don't really talk about. Like the assassination sequence doesn't really make sense. But I mean, all that being said, this was the movie that one of you already mentioned it. It transcends being a superhero movie because it is just such a gritty, realistic crime drama when you have Heath Ledger in this movie. And again, like he is in this movie, so it's fair game. And he makes this movie a lot better, so this movie is a lot better, and that's why I have it at number four. And this movie is phenomenal. The dynamic between him and Christian Bale is just insane and super tense. Every time he's on screen, it's absolutely gripping. There else is there really to be said about this movie? It's been talked ad nauseum because for a reason. I mean, it's just so great. There's seldom been a better performance, especially in the 21st century, by an actor than Heath Ledger as the Joker in this movie. He outshines Christian Bale, who probably is the best actor of our generation. I say that. I mean, Christian Bale as Batman, I think, is definitely like one of his weakest performances. But Christian Bale outside Batman in every other performance is just absolutely unreal. So the fact that Heath Ledger goes toe to toe with him as an actor and blows him out of the water speaks a lot. Um, yeah, it's just crazy to watch every single scene with him in it, and that by itself just puts this movie leaps and bounds against or ahead of so many other different films.
Yo,
Awesome.
number
Yeah,
Four.
I think.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah, I also have the Dark Knight at 4.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, we already talked about it a bunch, but I love the Dark Knight. I think it's a great movie. And there's not really much else to say about it. I like the themes a lot. The Joker representing anarchy, the Batman, but not necessarily representing good, but representing order. I think, because I think Harvey Dent is supposed to be good. The Batman, the Joker's plot, almost like in the one comic where he was trying to show like anyone can have a bad day, and that's all it takes to be like me. And the really powerful moment is when the two like ships don't end up blowing each other up, even though like one of them is just is like full of criminals. And it's to show that no, the Joker is wrong. The human spirit is stronger than what he thinks it is. It's a really powerful moment. I love The Dark Knight. It's a great movie.
Imagine how much cooler Dark Knight Rises would be if the unfortunate situation of Heath Ledger passing away doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Can you imagine like if they took more of that? That could have been pretty wild, maybe.
Yeah, that was really sad.
Okay. We down to the top 3 or up to the top 3 now?
Top 3, I think.
Top 3. For me, I have The Prestige at number 3. I just really love this. This is probably the one movie that kept me engaged for like the entire runtime from start to finish. Although the ending was like a little funny, but I just love uh the scheming between the two magicians, Angier and Borden. Like, and I also love how I like flip flop between the two characters, like who I wanted to succeed more. Like I was like, oh yeah, I want Borden to fucking kill it. But then he was like having a good life, and Angier was like his life was sucking. I was like, oh no, I want Angier to like figure it out. Like, hell yeah, man, go to fucking America, go see Tesla, get that shit. Um, uh, but then by the end, I think that honestly, it was just fun trying to like honestly like figuring out the pieces and then finding out that the notebook doesn't like literally was just bait. But then finding out that Angier's notebook was bait too, I was just like, dude, this is so good, man.
Yeah.
And honestly, like the ending was actually surprising. I was like, oh shit, Fallon was like. It turns out that he was just using a body double.
Yeah, I was like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah, it's his twin brother, and I'm like, damn, bro, that's crazy. And like poor Angier went through all that effort for literally nothing when his own what was the character or
George Root or
Michael
something.
Michael Caine's character was like, yeah, it's just a
Oh.
body double, dude. What the fuck are you talking about? It turns out it really was just his twin brother. But I think the only like honestly the weirdest part about the movie was the Tesla machine where it just creates another physical. I was like, okay, that's kind of whack. Like this whole movie up until this point was actually based in somewhat reality, like actual magician tricks and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then it was just like, oh no, we're just gonna create clones. And it was like, but it did make the last ending scene where they're in the bottom of that like the theater basement and there were all the water tanks of filled with Angier's like body double pot like bodies. I
Just
thought that was
murking
kind of.
himself
I was just
nonstop.
like, "What'd you say?"
Murking himself nonstop.
Yeah.
The
Well, but
daily.
the scene where he was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be the guy in the tank or the guy in 50 feet away up in the top. I was like, dang, like that is kind of like a I guess because they were both trying to prove to each other how good of a magician they were, or like how dedicated they were to the craft. And it's like at the end of the movie, I don't honestly, I feel like Angier took it, dude. Because like to go to Tesla to be like creative, I don't know. I just thought it was funny because Borden acts all like, "Oh, I'm dedicated to the craft. I'm dedicated," and then you're just like, okay, whatever. But I just love the tricks and turns, and I love the gradual like it was easier for like a normal audience like myself, like just the average viewer, to actually piece together the movie, um, as compared to the other movies, but. Yeah, I just loved it. I loved everything about this movie. So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. But I had a number three. Hello? Who's
Me.
next? I
Um,
guess so.
my number three is Oppenheimer.
Really? Huh.
Yeah,
I thought you
Thank
did that
God. I
higher.
didn't want to be the one to start it.
it's three,
I
and we're
mean, I
talking
know
about
about
Nolan
Want to
three.
talk about
movies.
Yeah.
Oppenheimer?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's
Oh, I know what you're gonna put in number one now. It's
no,
gonna be
you
like
don't.
it's gonna
No,
be
you
like
don't.
Kubrick. It's gonna be like Kubrick last time where I was like, yeah, Clockwork Orange, fucking like 7. And then both of you two put number one. I was like, oh, I have nothing to contribute. It's sorry.
No, that's fine.
Continue.
But yeah, Oppenheimer. I mean, like, it's like a near perfect movie for me. Like, this was such a enjoyable viewing experience. I watched it 4 times in theaters. uh, and yeah, it's got a 3 hour runtime, but at least for me, I think Nolan is probably the best with his pacing and editing here than he's ever been, because he hasn't made a longer movie, but it still feels like a 2:15, 2.5 hour film. And if you really think about it, it's probably more like a 3.5 to 4 hour movie, because he's telling two storylines at the same time in this film. If he told it totally chronologically, this film would have been even longer. But he uses all the skills that he has as a director, 20 years in the industry, to make a super condensed, super tense, and super dramatic biopic that kind of feels like the capstone of all biopics that we've seen, especially in recent years when it's been such a popular genre to do. Um, it's just it's almost breathtaking. Like the way that this movie's paced, it's like a dead sprint. The way I've always described it, it's been like a dead sprint from the very start of the film, and it runs like that until the detonation of the atomic bomb, and then it really slows down, and then you get to really marinate in all of these conversations and all of the thoughts of the characters about like, what did we just do, and like, did we set about the events that are going to bring the end of the world? And that's kind of what the movie leaves you on, and it's very heavy and very intense. The writing is just so phenomenal here, to where the film is basically just a carousel of conversations between characters interacting with Robert Oppenheimer, but you're able to get exposition from that. You're able to get drama from that. You're able to get historical background from that. And you're able to understand the greater themes of humanity that he's trying to tackle from that, especially in the persecution near the end of J. Robert Oppenheimer, the man, and when they're trying to strip him of his security clearance, and kind of trying to take him out of the spotlight, because of the political powers that be trying to, you know, basically steal his thunder and then gain control over this. He calls it the atomic genie let out of the bottle. It's just so many so many aspects that are super interesting about this movie. There's J. Robert Oppenheimer, the man. There's the science behind it, the amount of organization and military effort that was put to create this project, and the politics afterwards of just all of the intense world-changing implications that happen from just the detonation of an atomic weapon. There's just so much to grapple here, and he does it perfectly with a 3 hour bow. And it won the Oscar for a reason for Best Picture. Um, yeah, I feel like it's the perfect encapsulation of everything Nolan has learned as a filmmaker. And it's got his best cast. It's a huge ensemble. Everyone is phenomenal. And I think that's probably all I have for it. I mean, how could a movie about one of the most consequential moments in human history not be so compelling?
Yeah, that's my number three as well. I don't think any movie has made my heart race from beginning to end and do it for 3 hours. I just thought that was so cool. Um, I think you spoke perfectly about it. I would just mention, just as just fanboying on the movie, the scene where he's in the gym and you see, and everyone's so happy for him and like that he had this great achievement, and he doesn't feel that. He sees them burning and on fire, and it turns into a horror scene in the middle of a biopic, and it's just like, I think that's one of the more iconic scenes of the movie. And there's, I mean, and you have Josh Peck pulling a freaking, boom, that should be the iconic part. But
Wow.
no, I just thought
His only line.
Cillian Murphy put on the performance of a lifetime, and so did Robert Downey Jr., who's done so many great stuff. Somehow he even, finds another level. And yeah, if it's just like Christopher Nolan just goes crazy on this movie, and I absolutely loved it. I don't think any movie's ever going to make my heart race like that, especially over a 3 hour runtime. No movie that's 3 hours should do that. But it easily could be number one. Probably should be, but I just have some other stuff I liked more. But great movie.
Yeah, it's also my number three. Yeah, I really loved Oppenheimer. It was such a and I would have never expected what is essentially just here is Oppenheimer's life to be so compelling, but is a really really well done movie, and it really explains. It does a good job of showing kind of the the duality, the dichotomy of his character that he's working to beat he's working to create the bomb, right, but he's also like has some weird ties to the communist, which makes him a bad person, maybe, or maybe he's not a communist, maybe he was only there just because he wanted to fuck Florence Pugh. um
Read the words.
and I think showing just how much regret that he had, and going on to later in his life when he became such a huge advocate against the bomb was a really good move. Shut up. Shut up.
Pippin. Wait, were you talking to Pippin or Kelly there?
Pippin.
Oh, okay.
It's my fucking cat. He wants to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, there's so much good stuff to say about this movie, and but yeah, it's my number three because I love it.
Okay. Um, down to the last two, huh? So for number two, I have Memento. I love everything about this movie. I love the the twists of it. I love the way it makes me feel. I feel like this one was when Nolan didn't go like super highbrow with it and was trying to like say something like, be super highbrow like the other movies that we talked about, like Interstellar and stuff like that. I feel like this one was just super good. I mean, like how is it? I don't know. For me, I've only seen it once, so it was just kind of I should watch it again. But even just one viewing, you already know this is just basically a masterpiece and it's amazing. Um, and I love the forward and backward telling. It took me a while to figure out that that's what was happening. It took me until the one scene where, it goes into color and you're like, oh, okay, we're here. We're here. But yeah, I just love everything about this movie. Just all the characters were so good. So sorry I can't talk about it more. I'm like forgetting like I don't know why I can't remember the names and shit and the plot, but Kurt, you could fill it in.
Wait, you're what? You're forgetting?
I'm forgetting, dude. I'm literally forgetting, dude. Like I'm literally him right now. I
Well
can't.
played, Nick. Well
Lenny.
played.
Well,
But
that's good transition.
that is a good transition. Yeah, please fill it in. But that's my number two. So
Yeah, it's my number two as well.
yeah.
And yeah, this is what happens when you give Christopher Nolan even a small budget. He makes pure gold right off the bat. Again, fully formed director from the very start, and then this is even more proof of it as his second feature. Um, it's his first use of a meta narrative concept in which the story is about an amnesiac, and we, the audience, are told the story in that exact manner, and that we are also discovering what Lenny is discovering from his notes and from the reverse chronology of the story. Um, it's a very tight, lean thriller. It's no less cerebral than any of his other works, though. And what I really like about this movie is just how grounded it is. Uh, I I think you put it very succinctly in that you watch this movie once and you realize kind of from the start that it's a masterpiece. I think it's a very good introduction to anyone wanting to get into Nolan movies because it isn't that highbrow, sophisticated approach to something just insanely cosmic like a lot of his other movies are, but it's just as engaging because of the story. And we only really marinate with three different characters throughout the story, but we have questions and concerns about every single one of them. And the one who we least suspect is the one who we should have most suspected from the start because he's a completely unreliable narrator, as we're told from the very first shot of the movie. And that's something that really frustrated me kind of on the last viewing because I was watching it and I'm like, throughout the entire movie, Nolan is deliberately deceiving us very hard in this one. And when you watch it in the proper chronology and just a forward chronology, you see how terrible of a person Leonard really is. And it paints the story in a much darker light. And that kind of changed the whole perspective I had on this movie for me. So it's a very engaging movie. Uh, and I think this is what Nolan does best. Crime drama type tight thriller movies. Memento is the best example of that, along with being very Christopher Nolan-y, very cerebral, and him just doing all this cinematic trickery. It's a delight to watch.
My number two is The Dark Knight, and I just think it's solely because of Heath Ledger. Like, that's the only reason it's really that high, and I think that's a perfectly valid reason to have it that high. Just when you learn more about the movie and you learn more about Heath Ledger and how many scenes are just him just being the Joker and just going off of script, just kind of doing his own thing, I just think is so cool. I think how he picked up a mantle of the Joker that no one else wanted to do because of Jack Nicholson, really cool. And I don't think there'll ever be a better acting or someone who gets as much into character for a part as Heath Ledger does with the Joker. And I mean, solely because of that, I have it that high. It's just such a great movie. I think easily the greatest superhero movie ever made. So yeah, it's my number two.
My number two is The Prestige. I love The Prestige. It's such a good movie. It's to me, it is probably the most Nolan-esque movie. I think it's
Tell him about it, Austin.
Well, I mean, it's just like all of those, like all of the things that we think of when we think about Nolan. So he plays confusing narratives that tie together. He has all these callbacks to a lot of his movies have some kind of twist at the end or some kind of like uncertain moment. They have a lot of callbacks that go to them. So the entirety of Christian Bale's story in the movie is just full of all of these foreshadowing points. That's like, oh, he has a twin. That is why he's able to do the thing, is because he has a body double and it's just twin. And you watch all of it, and it's like, okay, well, that's a weird thing. I don't know how he did that. Like I remember it was even on my first viewing that was the only one that I really picked up on is when he tries to go into like on the first date with the girl. Like her name is Elizabeth, right? And he says, "Bye, I'll see you later." She closes the door and turns around, and he's right there, right behind her. And he
Sarah.
plays it off like, "Oh, it's just magic," but no, his twin broke into the apartment and was just waiting to do that. Or
Sarah, by the way, it's not Elizabeth, but
Scarlett Johansson's character is talking to her. It's like, oh no, it was also Elizabeth. It's just like I feel like I'm talking to two different people sometimes.
Yeah.
And it plays it so perfectly with the beginning of the movie where it's talking about the three steps of a magic trick, and then there's the turn of the trick or whatever. And it's like it's right in your face, but you're never going to realize it until after the trick is done.
so good.
I I know you were talking, Nick, about how you didn't like that Hugh Jackman's character has the crazy Tesla machine that lets him do the thing.
Yeah, I just thought I just felt like it took a weird turn there because everything was kind of realistic in the sense like you're like okay magicians like we all got tricks learning the secrets, but then that I just felt like it was like what the heck, why did we just go from that to literal science fiction? I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, that came out of nowhere. But
I did like
explain
it.
why you like that though.
I do like it for one reason, and it's for part of the theme of the movie. And I do agree that it is a very strange term. But part of the theme of the movie is Hugh Jackman's character and how obsessed he is with finding out the secret that he creates literal science fiction to be able to do it. And it's about his obsession, the lengths that you go through when you're super obsessed about something. And I mean, ultimately it's a bad thing for him, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter to him, even though the solution is simple. He goes through all these links and all these links destroys people's lives just so he can figure out what a magic trick is.
Yeah.
And he also kills himself hundreds of times. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I love The Prestige. It's such a good movie.
Although what a
It's
W
not my favorite.
W brother though, now that I think about it, literally just was like, yeah, I'll hang so you could be with your kid. That is kind of a W brother move. I just wanted to add that in there. So
Yeah, you're right. W brother.
that's what I'm gonna say.
I also like the Tesla machine because people think David Bowie is Nikola Tesla now.
Start off. My number one is Oppenheimer. I think like I probably have a little bit of a recency bias with it. Just it's his latest movie, so and I just really like Cillian Murphy a lot. Like I watched the what's that show?
Peaky.
Yeah, Peaky Blinders. So I kind of just fell in love with Cillian Murphy, and like when I found out he was in this movie as Oppenheimer, I was like, dude, what a good cast! What a good cast! And I also just really love history, and so I don't know. Of course, I was gonna like this, especially with Oppenheimer and the Manhattan Project, and I just love conspiracy theories. So like I'll know a little bit more behind the scenes of like Oppenheimer as like a person in real life and stuff, and so I'm just gonna sit here and fucking soapbox it real quick because like I just love it, but because you guys don't know. You guys know what Bohemian Grove is?
No.
You don't know what that is?
No,
Well, Jared does.
please.
Well, okay, I just want to put that out there. I just want to put out there in 1942, before the Manhattan Project even like actually started, he was invited to Bohemian Grove to give an afternoon talk, and that's where he got the funding to start the Manhattan Project. I just want to point out, like, it's kind of crazy. Kind of crazy he was at Bohemian Grove. Kind of wild. And I also want to say he probably was a communist. I just like out of all the research and stuff, he kind of was, but then later he fell off. Like it wasn't like a big thing. By the time he was actually doing the Manhattan Project, he wasn't even engaging in that kind of like in that scene and stuff like that. He was an ex-communist, I guess you can say. And he had no idea that any of the security leaks were happening out in New Mexico. So like I hate when people vilify him as a communist because it's like he wasn't even a communist by like I don't know, he was just kind of whack at that point. But
Once
yeah.
a commie, always a commie.
Oh my fucking God, dude.
That's the thing, like supporting like revolutions in Europe and just being of a general liberal mindset doesn't make you a communist.
Yeah,
And I think that's
there's
like a huge
not.
message of the movie.
Well, and there's no evidence that he actually gave like him himself actually giving up any information to the Soviet Union. Like, there's literally no evidence of it. Yeah, his colleagues did, but he was just, I think he was just ignorant to what was happening. And he was just so focused on like actually making the bomb. But, yeah, I just really like Oppenheimer. Like, I just thought it was a really well done movie. I thought that Robert Downey Jr.'s character was fucking awesome. As right, Strauss, right? That was the
Yes, Strauss.
Strauss, because I'm trying to remember the history, right? Strauss was uh he was in charge of the Atomic Energy Commission before Oppenheimer, right? And so Strauss was like the beginning of the unfortunate downfall for Oppenheimer in terms of his security clearance and his kind of like his name dragged through the mud. Um, so yeah, I just loved everything about it, and I'm glad that like nowadays that we can recognize how great he was as a person and like the contributions he made to the world. Unfortunately, he didn't really see it that way, but like he brought us into the atomic age, and we wouldn't be here without him. So anyway, I love Oppenheimer for the history and my own personal conspiracy, just mind towards it. So anyway, let's just move on so we can like get through this.
My number one is Inception. And I wouldn't have had this at number one until my most recent viewing of Inception. Uh, exactly what Austin said for The Prestige is how I feel about Inception. I feel that Inception is the most Christopher Nolan movie that there is. Um, for pretty much all the same reasons that you said for The Prestige, except I'll add that Inception calls back to his roots of being a crime thriller drama. Except this time he has the insane budget to do the action set pieces that he is more known for nowadays because he always has a great budget to do that at his will. Inception is kind of like the crossroads between his huge big budget movies with the cerebral concept and his early crime thriller dramas. It's that perfect meeting point, and it's right in the middle of his career. And this is what, like, The Dark Knight was obviously a huge movie, like a multi-billion-dollar success. It was like 1.9, no, not 1.9. It was 1 point something billion dollars, huge success. And then Inception followed it up immediately after. And after these two movies, within 2008 and 2010, everyone knew Christopher Nolan's name. That's like really when Christopher Nolan came to the forefront of our current zeitgeist for cinema. And for good reason. Like Inception is just it's an insane concept, but like I said earlier, in this video, he kind of, and it's the only real critique I have for the movie, he kind of holds the hand of the audience through heavy use of exposition. But I still don't see the exposition detracting at all from the enjoyability of the movie whatsoever. And I was hyper aware of it, especially on this last viewing. I was like, damn, a lot of scenes are like Joseph Gordon-Levitt walking and talking the plot of the movie. I mean, there's even the scene where he's going up the stairs and down the stairs, and he's explaining the illogical dream architecture to the architect. And that whole scene is him literally just exposition dumping what we, the audience, are supposed to glean by just watching it. But it's still so engaging. And the dialogue is still really well written here. I don't think any of it is excessive, honestly, even though a lot of it is kind of filling in the imaginatory gaps that the audience should be putting together. It's still paired with beautiful visuals. I think it's the best mixture of his use of practical and physical and computer generated effects all together, because there's so many scenes, like again, the step sequence. You're not even necessarily realizing that they're walking up and down at the same time until the camera swings around and they're on a ledge. And then it breaks the whole architecture of the scene. And there's a lot of scenes like that. Like when they're outside at the cafe and he's like, you don't even realize you're in the dream. And then it folds upon itself. The kick is so beautifully done in a lot of the scenes where it slows down. You get a sense of the time dilation between the different dream levels. It's just it's a breathtaking usage of practical and special effects in a movie paired with the really rich storytelling narrative that he decides to use here, which is the multi-layering of dreams and the sort of implications that has on the psyche of these multiple characters. And I know I kind of talked about it later when Austin brought it up, but I do think that this movie does make effective use of themes in that it really dives into Dominic Cobb, Leo DiCaprio's character, and how far he's willing to kind of deceive himself to live in a dream world. What is he more willing to do? Is he more willing to go live in this fantasy that he's trying to create with his wife in the dream, or is he willing to get back to reality to see his kids one last time? And it's kind of like Videodrome, where he starts to lose his balance on reality. He doesn't know which is really which in the end. And neither does the audience. The audience doesn't know if he actually made it back to reality to see his kids, because the top, his totem, the key to that lets him know if he's still in the dream or not. We don't necessarily know if it topples or not. So I think it just makes genius use of his typical meta-narrative structure way of telling a story. And I was getting goosebumps the last time I watched this movie from the very start, and the gun is placed down on the opposite counter from the businessman who soon hires him, because they're on that like fourth level of the dream, where they're getting close to like the kind of purgatory state. It's so engaging, especially upon rewatch. I just have a very hard time finding any flaw that takes away from this movie. And I think it is the hallmark Christopher Nolan movie for a reason.
Yeah, I want to talk about the exposition, because you're right. Like, there's a ton of exposition in this movie, but there has to be, because it's such a strange concept. It's not something that we have in the real world, and how like the dream layering works and stuff, that it has to be explained. And I think part of the reason why he does it so well is, number one, you see it through the eyes of Anastasia, or whatever, I think her name is that, the architect girl, Ellen Page. And she has to be explained all of these things. So Ellen takes the time to explain it to us through her. And number two, like the dialogue is just really, really good in this movie. There's not, there's no like Anne Hathaway monologue or anything. All the conversations, even with them just explaining how it works, it feels really natural.
It's so fun to watch.
It doesn't take you out of the moment of like, okay, now he's just explaining everything to us. It feels really natural and organic, and that's why you don't notice it as much.
Yeah. Prestige, numero uno. Easily the most.
Whoa.
What?
What?
Who knew?
Did I trick you the whole time? Did you not see that coming? Were you watching closely?
No.
No, I easily the most fun movie I've ever watched. Just I think I called Kurt afterwards and I gushed about it for about as long as the movie's runtime is.
Yeah.
So much about it is just so well done. Um, I thought that one of my favorite scenes was at the end where Borden's shot Angier and he talks about like, oh, you thought you had it rough, like you thought you took the easy way out. Me and my twin or my how they each shared half a life. Neither of them lived a full life for the sake of their trick, and how I mean both of them lose the love of their life, one to death, one Scarlett Johansson just is done with them because they both are getting half a person. um One of them dies for the other to live on to be with his child. Michael Caine gives his best Christopher Nolan performance. um I don't know. I just thought, I mean, Michael Caine's always a supporting guy, but probably his best one because he's more of a central character. Um, but yeah, it's my number two movie of all time now. Um, I just, I had such a good time with it. I watch it again and I just really enjoy finding more pieces of Christopher Nolan just putting it right in your face and seeing the trick now revealed to you and all the different pieces that are just there for you to see, but you just don't know they're there. Um, Crafting it, like Kurt said, like a magic trick, and then having it revealed at the end, just so cool. Um, I think it's for me. I think it's Christopher Nolan's best, and yeah, I just love it so much. I'll probably watch it like 500 times and never get sick of it. So
Sick.
My number one is Memento. Um, I have so much to say about this movie. You can watch a review of Memento if you just want to hear me talk for twice as much as the rest of the host about how much I love the movie. But the reason why I put it at number one, not only is it my favorite Nolan movie, but it's his second movie, right?
Yes.
Um, and it comes after Following, which was good, but he still didn't have the huge budget and all the action and set pieces, and he didn't quite have down like the twists and the turns and him doing all the foreshadowing. He didn't have all that narrative directional like directing skill yet. And even without all of that, he's still able to create a fantastic movie that doesn't need a huge budget to create okay action scenes and believable action scenes. They're much more grounded than the rest of his movies. Um, he didn't have all those directing skills on how to tell a story, and he still told a fantastic story. Didn't have he did wasn't he put in some foreshadowing. We talked about a couple pieces of foreshadowing that you could have missed. So um, Teddy telling him that hey, your notes aren't always reliable. He blows him off. He's like, no one's taking advantage of me. And then like two scenes later, the hotel clerk is like, yeah, I've been taking advantage of you for like weeks now. And you're going to forget it. So oh well. And that oh man, it's so good. And then the twist at the end where he's like, you know, maybe I want to make you the bad guy, Teddy. And you understand finally, because that was like the last bit of the notes that he had recently written down that you didn't have an explanation for yet. It's like, why does he have this license plate number? Is he because he wrote it down? I love this movie so much. It's so
Yeah. It's
it doesn't and it doesn't need all of the cool action pieces. It doesn't any of that or the huge budget for it to still be a fantastic movie. That's why I put it at number one because it's Christopher Nolan at his best, in my opinion.
Yeah.
yeah,
more people need to know about Memento. 100%.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad we all had different number ones. It goes to show just the diversity and strength of his catalog. All right, boys. Yeah, I think the same probably applies as it did last time. Obviously, these movies are kind of scaled on a curve here for Christopher Nolan. So like an F for Christopher Nolan is not an F tier movie whatsoever. But yeah. So following, what are we thinking?
For F tier? Oh, following.
Yeah.
Like C.
Personally, I'm
Probably
thinking
like a C.
I'm thinking C as well.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Memento.
Is that S tier or A tier?
I'd put it in S.
I was
S or-
thinking for these ones, do you want to put like we'll get all of the A movies in there and like at the end we'll decide which of the A movies are actually S tier and which aren't? Or
if
do you
you
want to
want
just
to.
jump right into like
I
throwing an
mean,
S tier in?
Yeah, we can, but this one is just an S tier movie.
That's
It
just
is, yeah.
S.
Okay.
I agree. Insomnia.
I think it's a B tier, honestly. Could be a C though.
Yeah, like a B or C. I like Insomnia.
I really, yeah. I
I'd
like
throw
it
it
a
B
lot.
tier personally.
I'd say C, but it sounds like I'm the only one here.
I think it's a B tier movie.
I think
Y'all
it's
are-
better.
I guess
don't
if you're
know.
putting it
I
in a
don't know.
Nolan film
Yeah.
tier list, it would be a C because it's not like Nolan.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's better than
The
following.
following.
I've
Yeah.
said that, but
I don't know.
I think following is just a
Put it-
better story.
Put it in C tier because then we can always move it later.
Okay. Batman Begins.
D.
C or D?
I think it's a D.
Jared? Any thoughts? Okay. Any rebuttals?
Can you hear us?
I don't think Jared could hear us.
What?
I can hear you.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay. He was just doing a
No,
bit.
I said Batman Begins to C, and then no one said anything, and I was like, damn.
Oh,
No.
yeah, we didn't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I would say C.
Prestige.
A tier.
You guys are gonna put it in an A movie.
But we got Jared and Austin. What are you guys thinking?
I would make The Prestige and Memento my S tiers probably.
Okay. And Jared would too. Nick,
I'd put it in the A tier.
what
I
are we?
don't-
I'm also feeling A. But
Yeah, like no, I think like I don't know, for the right person it would be an S tier, but I don't know. I think compared to Memento, I think it's definitely a cup below Memento, but
that's
Yeah,
what I'm saying.
yeah, I'd put it in A tier. But I mean, for my list, they were right next to each other anyway, so I mean, I think it's an A tier movie.
Let's put all these like soft rank and then go back and hard rank it.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, next is gonna be Dark Knight.
Yes.
A.
It's an A tier.
A.
Yes. Graded. It's like a top 5 movie of all time, rated by like widely thought of.
Okay, next.
I mean, no, not
No, sorry.
to not to discredit that.
Yeah,
It's just
no, I
I just don't think it's on the level of like Memento, as far as
Top
like
5 of all time? I don't
like
know.
like
That-
story. Because
Look at,
again, you
like a
take
lot of
Heath
people's
Ledger out of it.
like a lot of big websites, if they give their like greatest movies ever, Dark Knight's like always top 5.
Whoa.
Yeah, but I mean that's always it's not necessarily greatest movie ever. It's always just popular movie, right? That's how all these articles make their money. But again, we'll soft rank and then go back.
Inception?
I want to put it S, but I know you guys don't want to put it there.
A.
What are you guys thinking?
It's A B for me. I'd rather put it in B, but I think
I would put
it's totally okay to put it A too.
I feel like a B.
Jared?
It's an A.
All right. Damn. Okay.
Like, yeah, brother.
Drop it there. Don't move it.
Okay. Batman Begin or Dark Knight Rises. F, dude.
Yeah. F.
Fuck this movie, dude. Dude, this movie sucks. Like it literally does.
It sucks.
All right, Interstellar.
Interstellar.
I say it's D, but
Ew.
I know that's
Oh my
unpopular.
God, dude, no,
No, it's
like
not
a-
a D tier movie. Are you kidding? It's better than
If you're
Insomnia.
gonna put the following in a C tier, you put
Yeah, bro,
Interstellar in
that'd
a
be
C tier or above it.
put it in the B tier, man.
in the B tier.
Throw a B tier in there. I mean, I want it A, but I mean, I know that's not gonna happen.
Wow.
So.
Dunkirk. I'd say
Yeah.
B.
I think it's a
No,
B.
Put it
It's a
in a
B.
Z for snoring. Good lord, it's trash.
That's an S.
Yes.
But it's C for snoring. Okay, Tenet.
We got Tenet.
D.
E.
D.
Yeah, it's like both for me, honestly. It's like low C, high D.
And then Oppie.
I want to put A, but I know you guys will do something different.
I'd say A to S. Austin.
Yeah, I love Oppenheimer. We're gonna have to rearrange this list again and move some stuff around again, though. But
Yeah, put it there. Put it there. There you go.
All right. What do we need to move? Dude, Interstellar's not B, but no one's gonna agree with me. God.
Yeah,
Honestly,
you're gonna have
if
to
you're
live with
putting
that
the
one, Kurt.
following as a C tier, then Interstellar cannot. Interstellar's above the following.
Not in my opinion.
Is Insomnia better than the following though?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Story of the story? Nah.
What about rearranging A tier a little bit?
Yeah, A tier definitely needs to shuffle.
Prestige. Um.
I could move Prestige to S.
Yeah, you could.
Hell yeah.
I think it's great.
I love
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't care where anything else goes now. We're good.
I think Inception. I don't know.
I think it's a great A tier if it's The Dark Knight and Inception, and if Oppenheimer goes to S.
Well, damn, 3 S tiers?
Yeah, we are on
It
a
is.
curve.
No, that's too many.
Yeah, true. You can't say Oppenheimer's better than The Prestige, so I just don't get why Dunkirk's all the way up there, man. That's just
Whoa, whoa.
I'm telling you, Interstellar should be lower, but
I would be okay with swapping Interstellar and following, actually.
yo,
No.
that's a great take.
that's the
I
opposite.
like following a lot.
I'd be okay with
Following
swapping
is great.
I'd be okay with swapping Dunkirk and Interstellar, but following? No, dude.
That's an
I'd
easy
be okay.
swap.
Dunkirk just get to be a B movie.
It is
You
good.
could do D for documentary.
I just need to watch it again.
Probably. That's,
I mean,
my hate's probably like not even like grounded at all.
honestly, I think this is pretty strong right here. Unless anyone's feeling the change.
I mean, I like it.
Mm.
The movie I care about the most is exactly where it needs to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's easy for you.
Dang, we need to find harder ranking movies. We just like got it here and figured it out so quick.
We
Yeah,
need
I
to
mean-
find like a director who's made tons of dog shit so we can argue about which one's worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it looks
Yeah.
good.
Well, cool. I mean, this is it then. I like it. I think it's fair for all of them.
There's a little contention, but we got through it.
Yeah.
Is the following B tier and Interstellar C tier?
No.
I'd agree with that.
I'm second guessing one of my biggest opinions.
I mean, Interstellar has problems. I mean, it does.
So,
but it is such a beautiful movie, and the soundtrack is really good, and the story is really good. So I don't know if I can drop it to C.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. That might be it.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming and joining with me this week, boys. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Yeah, we haven't figured out how to end these, huh?